Hi, and welcome to Freshwaves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Today we have a fascinating show with one of our regular guests, Lorraine Thornhill. We're speaking today about hypnosis, but also how hypnosis helps us to deal with addictions. Now, we know that addictions can be anything from being addicted to cigarettes, addicted to food, and let me tell you, with the holiday season just passed, boy, that buffet table can be really tempting. And, it can be a habit of just going to the buffet and eating way more than you normally would eat. We also have other habits in our lives, the habit of social media that certain social media networks create on purpose to pull you into their buying of something, looking at things that they want you to see. And we need to learn how to deal with these habits, even the habit of shopping. There is something to being a shopaholic. So how can hypnosis help with addictions? Hi, Lorraine, and welcome to Fresh Waves.
Oh, hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's always fun to have you here on Fresh Waves. So tell us again, just give people a little overview. What is hypnosis?
Hypnosis is the ability ability to speak to the unconscious mind, bypass the critical faculty of the conscious mind, the filter that stops information from being changed or information from getting into the unconscious mind. And it allows us to rewrite or reprogram. It allows us as a hypnotist to rewrite or reprogram beliefs, thereby changing behaviors for the better.
So in terms of trying to break a habit, is it safe to say that some of the habits we have in our adult life actually come from when we were younger?
Habits are formed over time. A lot of the conscious behavior that we're aware of has an underlying unconscious source. And with smoking and weight management, a lot of the weight related issues are not just because people decided to eat more of something. There's more to it than that. And if you can find the source of when the behavior started, you can actually rewrite the behavior so the body starts changing. You can also rewrite the belief. And when you rewrite the belief, the body follows suit. So if you believe yourself to be overweight or obese or unhealthy, then chances are your body, your physical body, will follow that behavior. Follow that belief in behavioral patterns. So if you can rewrite the mind to believe that it's extremely healthy or healing in some parts of the body, then the behavior follows suit. The mind is a really powerful tool.
Yeah, and it sometimes runs amok, doesn't it? It's making us do things that we're not really conscious of doing.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to imagine that somebody would be addicted to smoking and that happened when they were 7, but it could well be that people around them were smoking all the time when they were that young, and they associate a social situation or, a good time sort of thing with the smoking.
It could also be that smoking came about because of influence from peers, but the reason they started smoking might be because they wanted to alleviate a particular emotion. Right? And the emotion could have been from a previous state or an earlier state in their life.
So then how would hypnosis deal with that? We'll just use smoking as an example first off. I mean, we could use my addiction to chocolate. But we'll start with smoking, because people shouldn't be smoking. If they can avoid it, they shouldn't be smoking. And a lot of people have quit, and I know a lot of people have used hypnosis. But they have to want to quit when they come to you, don't they?
Yeah, that is the main criteria. That was one of the first questions I asked. Is it you who wants to quit, or is it a family member who wants you to quit? And if it's a family member, they're not ready to quit themselves. If it's, so I ask them to come back when they're ready to quit themselves. When it's their motivation that brings them to my door to stop smoking.
Right. And that's a whole different thing, isn't it?
Well, there's an emotional attachment to that, right? If, for example, if I smoked and my husband said, Lorraine, I want you to quit smoking, and I wasn't ready, and I went to see a hypnotist, I would say to the hypnotist, my husband wants me to quit smoking. And then the hypnotist would say, do you really want to quit smoking? And I would say, yeah, but my husband wants me to quit. I'm not sure if I'm ready to quit yet. Then it won't work, because the underlying agreement is not there. Right? So the suggestions that the client or the person who wants to quit smoking need to accept are the absolute truth, which means that they have to tell me the absolute truth also, because if they don't, it's not going to work to their benefit. They may quit for a week or so, but they'll go right back at it if that's the case. But generally, I don't take people for smoking cessation unless it's their choice to come to me. Right. Because I can't guarantee my work then. Because they're not ready. They're not at that stage. They're not at that threshold.
Now, what about weight loss?
Weight loss, I get a lot of people with weight loss, and it's been really successful because I don't work on calorie counting or reducing the amount of foods. What I work with in weight loss is there's 4 areas. I work on self-esteem. I work on beliefs. I work on increasing the metabolic rate and reducing cravings, which is, in a sense, an addiction. And I give them audios to listen to when they go to sleep, so it's embedded in their system, in their unconscious mind while they're sleeping. And it also, there's 2 folds to that. One, they sleep really great for the rest of the night. And
I would do it just for that.
Yeah. The other one, they're rewriting and reprogramming their unconscious mind so that they can adapt to a better lifestyle. It's not just about losing weight. That's not, when you lose weight, chances are you'll find it again. So if you reprogram the mind to feel differently about the person's self-love instead of self-doubt, it changes the dynamics of how the body behaves. It stops blocking things from making it healthier.
Right. I know a lot of nutritionists in my world because I just happen to hang out with a lot of nutritionists. But anyway, what I hear a lot of them saying is that when they have clients who come to them and say, I want to lose weight, they instantly start talking to them about their lifestyle and how they eat and what emotions are attached to the eating. And one of them in particular always says she would rather you have a hot dog with a friend than a salad with an enemy. So that you actually absorb more out of the food that you're eating if you're in a relaxed and loving environment with connection, friends, family, whatever. You actually get more out of eating. When you think of a child, they're eating with their parents a lot of the times, and they love what they're eating. Even if they're eating something that's hard for them, like a hot dog, they love every minute of it.
Yeah, it's all about the connection to the emotions when you're eating food. Right? And if you can figure out the connection and what emotions are triggering the behavior, you can rewrite that connection
So
and delete the cravings.
it's almost like you're saying, that old philosophy of fake it till you make it. If you keep telling yourself often enough that you're good, eventually you'll believe that you're good. So if you are doing the hypnosis, are you going back into the subconscious and telling the subconscious mind that you're okay, that you're good enough?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Louise Hay did a really good job on affirmations. And when you're thinking of something, you can't think of something else. So you can only think of one thing at a time. You can have different pieces of information in your mind at a time, but the active thoughts, you can only have one active thought at a particular time. So Louise Hay has this affirmation audio. I am worthy. I am good enough. I am. And if you keep repeating that, sometimes to the point where, not sometimes, eventually you get to the point where your mind starts rewriting the old programs. Mm-hmm. But that takes effort. It does take repetitive nature, whereas hypnosis bypasses some of that repetitive nature. In fact, it bypasses the repetitiveness of those affirmations. Not saying that affirmations aren't great, because they are. They're absolutely amazing, and everybody should use affirmations. But what hypnosis does, it bypasses the repetition of those affirmations, rewrites the internal programming, and then replays the new internal programming on a conscious level, which creates a behavioral change. So in food, that could be, I no longer like sugar. I no longer like chocolate. In fact, I would prefer to have an apple. And I'm not saying that that's what you should have instead. All I'm saying is it now gives you choices because you have the strength to make a choice. Right? I'm not a nutritionalist, so I wouldn't create an eating program. In fact, I would refer an eating program to a nutritionist. What I do is recreate the programming in the mind that will help that person create a better lifestyle and a healthier way of believing in themselves, changing the outcome of their behavior towards food, but mainly their behavior towards themselves. So like I said, it's a self-love factor. It is emotional factor. It's cravings. It's metabolism. It is all those combined in different segments creates a positive outcome.
Right. So you're combining all those positive affirmations, as it is, right into the subconscious, as opposed to, I think if you say something out loud or even in your head, you still have to kind of force yourself to believe it. And if underneath what you're saying is a subconscious mind that doesn't believe it, it won't sink in.
Yeah, the subconscious mind is learning new things to do instead of.
Okay.
Right? So it's a learning skill. So the hypnosis teaches the subconscious mind to do something different, basically. And because it's bypassing that critical faculty, the filter that stops information going in to the unconscious mind and keeps it on the conscious level, because it bypasses that, it can go directly to the source. So your eating is changed. Your metabolic rate increases. Your thoughts about food develop healthy habits. You're breaking addictions, cravings, and you're changing your preferences towards food, towards yourself first, and then towards food. Because if I say I love myself, which a lot of people really do have a hard time saying when they're not secure about themselves, if we can rearrange those thought patterns, then everything else starts flowing easily and the weight starts melting away.
Yeah, and it's not even sometimes an issue of losing weight so much as it's becoming healthy.
Correct, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about the numbers either. It's not about losing 10 pounds or 20 pounds.
No, and there's a lot of very thin people.
Reframing.
Yeah, thin people are not necessarily very healthy. I think it's almost one of those things where you've got to be careful of what you wish for.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you as a hypnotist, by the sounds of it, you have a really big responsibility because someone's letting you into the very core of who they are.
Yes.
And that's quite the privilege.
There has to be a lot of trust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there has to be a lot of trust and rapport built ahead of time. And if I don't build the rapport or the trust, I won't be able to do the work that I need to do to help them. So it's very important that there's a communication happening between myself and my client, because without that rapport, the work doesn't sustain itself.
Now, people might not think of hypnosis as a way to lose weight. They're going to go to whatever fad diet is running at the time, have a diet of 100% of bananas or something like that. And those things do work temporarily. But
Correct.
Walk us through what it would be like if someone came to you, they listen to this show and they say, you know what, I'm going to try hypnosis. So they walk in the door and what do you say? How do you start a meeting with someone who wants to lose weight?
I basically ask them a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
What is the reason behind? What is their desire? When it comes to needs, I ask them to define that because sometimes needs get in the way of desires. So if somebody needs something, for what reason? What is the purpose of that need?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, do they desire to start melting the weight away? Do they desire to change their lifestyle?
So say if they were coming to you and you realized that they were coming to you because they wanted to lose weight so they could fit into this outfit that they have, whether it's a wedding dress or whatever, that's a totally different thing than saying, I'm coming to you because I want to feel better. And I know I'll feel better when I lose weight.
It is. You're absolutely right. One of the things that I talk about with a person who says that, and that has been said to me, is I will rearrange the conversation in a way that guides them to understand the concept behind. I would just create more questions around the reason why they want to get into the dress. Because if it's just the wedding, that is not a good enough reason to change your lifestyle. It's a great reason to look good at the wedding, absolutely.
Yeah.
But once the wedding's over, I ask them, what do you want to do after that? Right? So my objective is to get them to understand that there's more to it than looking good in a dress. There has to be a bigger picture involved. There has to be a health change, a lifestyle change. How do they feel about themselves? What do they see when they look in the mirror? What do they hear when people talk? In fact, they probably don't hear anything at all, but their self-talk is what they listen to, right? What do they talk about when they talk about themselves? All these things have to play a part in their understanding of where they are psychologically, emotionally, and physically in the process of the desire to melt that fat away.
Right.
Again, it comes like smoking cessation. If you're not ready for it, are you willing to do the work? Right?
Mm-hmm. Because just because you hypnotize someone doesn't mean that all of a sudden they don't have to put any effort in.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So it's not a quick fix.
They have to do the work.
Right.
Yeah. So they can come to my office for hypnosis, but if they said, well, I'm expecting that to work 100%, and smoking cessation, generally it does, until it doesn't, if you know what I mean, right? Like, so smoking cessation and weight management, my clients lose weight and they stop smoking. But if their mind isn't there 100%, they need to come back to me and get a top-up to be able to continue the program.
Mm-hmm. How long does it normally last for?
A lifetime.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
That's
I
fabulous.
knew you were going to ask that one. I get that question a lot, actually. As long as you're willing to continue with the work, it lasts a lifetime. So I've had clients lose a lot of weight and keep it off. And I've had people stop smoking and never start. But I have had the odd one that started again after 8 months. And I'm thinking they've gone 8 months without smoking and then they've started again. What triggered the desire to start smoking again, you know?
Right, because at that point, it's not a physical addiction anymore. After 8 months,
Correct.
The nicotine is out of your system and you are free and clear of that physical chemical addiction. Then you're dealing with a habit, which is just
Correct.
as addicting, but it would be, interesting to see. I know
you're
people...
dealing more with an emotion.
Right.
Something,
Okay.
The emotion triggered a habit.
Right. Because I know people who've gone back to smoking when a loved one has passed away.
Right.
You know, so after 10 years of quitting, all of a sudden they're smoking again because it was during that stressful time when they reached for the cigarette, which used to comfort them. And then before you know it, by the end of a week, they're addicted again.
Right. But it wasn't the habit of smoking or not smoking. It was the emotional connection to a cigarette. So it's the emotion that triggered the relapse, right? So you deal with the emotion and then the cigarettes will take care of themselves.
Isn't that fascinating?
Mm-hmm.
So you do have to come back. Well, not necessarily have to. That was the wrong phrase to use. But you can come back for a top-up, like you called it, to just reaffirm what you think you already know.
Yeah. Now with my weight management, you know, the program runs from 4 to 6 weeks, and you see some change in that already. But the onus is on you to follow through after the 4 and 6 weeks. Now, the work is already done in the unconscious mind. It's just a matter of the belief in yourself that you can do it. That's what I'm talking about. If you say something after the fact, and let's say you've lost 40 pounds in 6 weeks or 20 pounds in 6 weeks, again, the weight is irrelevant, and you said it worked, but I don't want to do it anymore, then, of course, you're going to see a decline in the weight loss, right? But the beauty of it is, once you've rewritten those programs in the unconscious mind, it's easy to stay on track because you're no longer having those cravings. You're no longer having the desire to eat any time of day, and you're listening to your hunger sensations, which weren't around before because they were masked by bloating. With gastric bypass hypnosis, you rewrite the brain to think that there's a gastric band on your stomach, and therefore it can only take in smaller amounts. Not ever do I do in weight management. I don't tell them what foods to eat or what foods they can't eat. What I do is rewrite how the brain responds to different programs or different eating styles, or just how they respond to food.
Wow.
And they tend to start enjoying denser foods and more high fiber foods, more so than they ever did before.
Wow.
So it goes from the sweet, which get rewritten, the sugar cravings, to the no sugar cravings, because you're no longer craving sugar. And then it goes into a desire to eat natural sweets, like in apples or fruits or even vegetables. Carrots are nice and sweet. But I do not tell you what to eat. I cannot tell you what to eat because I'm not a nutritionist, nor does it really matter what you eat. What you believe in is more important than the foods that you actually eat.
Right, because you will eat the good foods if those are the foods that you are craving, because emotionally you're attaching something good to those foods.
Correct, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Lorraine about addictions and how hypnosis can help. Stay tuned. You're listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. We'll be right back. You're listening to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Remember, if you'd like to hear this show again, you can check out our YouTube channel at Freshwaves Radio. Now let's get back to the show. We're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and today we're speaking with Lorraine Thornhill, who is a professional hypnotist, and we're talking about hypnosis. Now, Lorraine, before we had the break, we were talking about weight loss and how we rewrite the subconscious or the unconscious mind to like ourselves and to like potentially good food, or just simply liking feeling better. And since the holidays have just passed, some people may be feeling really guilty and beating themselves up emotionally about how bad they were at the holiday buffet, or how many of those beautiful shortbreads from Scotland that so-and-so brought for dinner, and they felt like they had to eat them because it's a one-time thing, but they ate the whole box. Okay, that was me. I have to admit, that's me every year. So how do we deal with this? Because we know that with the emotion attached to eating, if you're beating yourself up, you're really doing yourself a lot of harm. But how do we get over that?
You are doing yourself a disservice for sure. My recommendation or my suggestion is to recreate something positive out of that. And the way you do that is just to say, okay, this is what I have done over the Christmas holidays. I'm no longer going to do that. I am now going to do this. And because you can't change what's already been done in the past, although some hypnotists would say that they could reprogram the past, which is true, but what's gone is not gone. You actually can't change the physical happenings of the past, but you can rewrite how the brain responds to that. So when you feel yourself like that, you can always start. See, a lot of people start a diet and then they eat something wrong and then that diet fails. And it could be the first hour, it could be the first day, it could be the first week, whatever the case may be. But the mindset isn't there to continue. And so to develop the mindset to continue on a healthy program of eating and taking care of yourself, you need to rewrite some of the program in your unconscious mind to be able to do that, because we actually set ourselves up for failure just by dieting alone. And that's why I don't believe in dieting so much. I believe in changing a lifestyle or changing a behavior to create a positive outcome. So that's where hypnosis is really good at doing that. And so when you're after the holidays and you're feeling bloated, instead of looking back about what you did, start looking forward to what you can do. And ask yourself, what if I did this? What if I started this program today? And yes, I'm not going to be perfect at it, but what if I started at it today? Where would it get me in 3 weeks? Where would it get me in 6 weeks? Where would it get me in 3 months? Right?
Right.
So if you ask yourself those important questions and then start based on that foundation, using what if it worked? What if I changed one little thing out of my day to make a difference? What if I meditated 5 minutes a day instead of going to the refrigerator? What if I extended that meditation to 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes? And what if I went for a 5-minute walk? How would that change my life? Well, it would change dramatically, because it would get you into the mindset of acceptance of refreshing change, of doing something different that didn't work before. And then you start reprogramming yourself. And whenever you have cravings, again, take in a nice deep breath 3 times and then count from 5 to 1. And after you hit 1, see if that craving is still there.
Mm-hmm. Would that same kind of a theory work if you find yourself with your hand on the refrigerator door? Can you stop then and take those 3 breaths? Would that maybe get your hand off the door?
So what I would do in a scenario like that is retrain the brain to see the question, what if? Paste that on the refrigerator door and ask yourself that question. What if I open this right now? What if I didn't need to have anything right now? Am I really hungry right now? Use that as part of a question that you ask yourself to determine if you're hungry or not, if you really want something or not. If you really want something, have it, by all means. This is not stopping you from having anything that you choose to have. What it is doing is helping you discern the times that you would prefer to eat and the times that you would prefer not to eat.
Okay.
Right? So stick a question mark on your fridge. In fact, what it is, it sets a trigger to question, do I really desire this or do I need it? And when you figure that out, a lot of the times you can alleviate or add the next step.
Yeah, I've heard people say that, a lot of nighttime eating is caused because your body is getting tired, but for some reason, you want to watch the news or whatever, you're doing something, you need to stay awake, but you're at your circadian rhythm time of going to sleep, and you want to stay awake longer, but your body's saying it wants to go to sleep. So you're looking for that energy hit that's going to keep you up for another hour or hour and a half, depending on what it is. And I guess that becomes a bit of a habit too. And if you recognize that that's exactly what's going on, then can you use hypnosis to program your brain to say, no, it's actually time to go to bed, not time to eat a bowl of chips or a bowl of ice cream?
Yeah, I was just actually going to talk about that. You could get bored easily, and the boredom leads to repetitive, unproductive behavior, right? So you can actually reprogram your mind to think differently. And using an audio, for example, while you're laying down in bed, that not only puts you to sleep, but reprograms the thought process of needing or desiring food late at night. You can take that behavior and rewire it to something like, I no longer eat after 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the food tastes really lousy after 9 o'clock. And after 10 o'clock, it tastes really, really bad.
And through hypnosis, you're rewriting that pattern in your subconscious to think, oh, no, this is really not going to taste good.
Yeah. Well, anything. You can rewrite that program for any cravings at any time. But that's something that could be addressed. It's basically a craving, right? Mm-hmm. So if you work with cravings, there's all sorts of emotional tapping exercises that you can do, or anchors that you can do to eliminate cravings also. So using the craving buster techniques, and there's numerous craving buster techniques that you can use, you will eliminate the need or the desire to have that food. And not only that, the most of the common element that people work through when they, or not work through, that they don't realize when they have a craving, is that they're not in the present moment. So they're not focused on the emotional state in the second. They're focused on something about the past or thinking about the future. And if they were focused in the present moment, then the craving will actually subside. So that's something that a lot of people, when they recognize that, that's why breathing and saying 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 brings you back to the present state. You know, you count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you ask yourself, do I still need this chocolate? Do I still need this? Whatever it is you want, candy, popcorn, whatever it is, chips. Do I still need this after I hit 1? And if I do, what's the reason behind it? Am I hungry? What if I put the chips back in the cupboard? What if I put the candy back in the cupboard? What would that do to me? Well, it would create a different pattern.
Mm-hmm. Is it safe to say that you can't just stop the pattern of poor behavior, that you actually need to replace it with a different pattern, and that makes it easier?
So I would like to think that you could stop it cold turkey, but in order to stay successful at it, by replacing it with a healthier pattern, it makes it that much more successful.
Okay. Earlier when you were speaking about the coming for 6 weeks or something, or 4 weeks, how long is a normal session?
Anywhere from 60 minutes to 120 minutes.
And during that time, how much of it is spent actually under hypnosis?
Well, I also, in my program, I also use NLP, neuro-linguistic programming techniques, and I'll use tapping techniques, and I'll use energy work. And so there's a big area covered in a small amount of time. But for hypnosis itself, we're looking at a good hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for pre-talk, for work, change work, and for reaffirming and any questions that people have. They generally come in. We chat a little bit. There's the rapport time, the pre-work, the hypnosis, the deepener, the change work, and then the conclusion after that. So anywhere between 60 minutes and maybe 90 minutes on average, and it could go to 120 minutes depending on how often I have seen this person before.
Right. And what is this tapping technique you keep referring to?
It is a system that runs through our body. We have energy lines, like the meridian lines that run through our body. Mm-hmm. And when we tap on those meridian lines, we can change a behavior and a thought process because emotions are connected to different energy lines within the body. And if we separate the energy from the emotion, then we can rearrange that energy to think of something else. For example, when you are stressed out, or when a person is stressed out or anxious, let's go to stage fright, for example, because I experienced this myself. I was really nervous about talking in front of people. I have been for a very long time. And I've done self-work, hypnosis work, self-hypnosis work, and I've gotten really that much better at it. And but prior to that, I did what they call is energy tapping, where I can tap on certain energy lines within the body, and I can state my fear or my stressors, and then tap on 5 or 6 different energy points, stating my stressors. And what it does, it disconnects the emotional component from the physiology of the body. So when I got stage fright, I used to get nervous. I used to sweat and shake, and my voice would be very nervous and shaky. And by using EFT, I would be able to disconnect the physiology, which was the nervousness, the shakiness, and the vibration in my voice from the actual emotion. So my emotions would not set off any physiology. Therefore, when I spoke in front of people, I would talk like I was talking normally. And because the emotional quotient, the emotional component, and the physical component were separated by me tapping on these energy lines. And to show you over the phone would be difficult, but I can explain it a little bit. So if I were to say, I'm afraid, I tap on my non-dominant hand on the right side with my right hand, on the side of my non-dominant hand, which is my left hand, with my dominant hand, and I will say to myself, fear of public speaking, fear of public speaking. And then I would tap on the top of my head and say, public speaking, public speaking. And then my crown chakra or third eye, I would say tap, and I would say public speaking to the right of my eye. It doesn't matter which one. The energy lines run down both sides. I would do the same thing, public speaking. And then underneath my eye, public speaking. Above my mouth, public speaking. Underneath the nose and the bridge between my lips and my nose. And then on one side of my collarbone, in that little dimple to the left or the right side of the center, I would say public speaking. And then I would take a nice deep breath in, and I would relax and say peace as I breathe out. And that would disengage the physiology from the emotional attachment to public speaking. So on that note, what I would do then is on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say, for example, subject units of distress would be probably a 9 or 10 to begin with. After that, I will check the scale again, and let's say it's down to a 3 or 4, and then I would continue doing it until it's down to a 0 or 1. And then I would go and do the public speaking, and it changes the dynamics of the outcome completely. I am able to speak clearly with intent, with purpose, and get my point across without too much stress associated with public speaking.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It works really, really well. It's a very powerful technique. And so I also use that actually for cravings too. That's one of the tools I use for eliminating cravings.
So you're tapping on specific areas of the body.
Yes.
And those areas are associated with the energy meridians in the body.
Correct. And in your example, fear of heights, you could, I can send you the PDF file I have written up about this, but the fear of heights, you can use that to work on your fear of heights also.
Oh, really? You can use the tapping?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
And I invite you for hypnosis to help you through that.
Okay. I will take you up on that because it's sometimes it's debilitating. We went, like I said, hiking in the mountains, and for a while I was fine, but then coming around that corner, I honestly couldn't move. I was glued to the side of the wall, and I started talking to myself. I just said, okay, see the wall, don't see the cliff. And of course, I've also heard people say, I'm not sure if it's true in hypnosis, that you don't verbalize what you don't want. So as soon as you say, oh, I don't want that cookie, or I don't want those potato chips, then the potato chip or the cookie is in your head. So it's better to say, oh, no, thanks. I'd like a celery stick.
There is a reason behind that, because the unconscious mind can't understand the word don't or no. It can only understand the actual fact.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So all it hears is want cookie. It doesn't understand I don't want cookie.
Okay.
And so anything that negates like that, it doesn't understand negation. So it deals with facts and figures and truisms, and it's not subjective. I don't want something is subjective.
Okay. What about cookie bad? Cookie bad.
Cookie bad. Now that works, right?
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah, because that's not a subjective word.
Okay. So then standing on the side of a cliff, you could say, I'm safe.
I'm safe is actually perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when it comes
assuming
to...
that you are very safe.
Right. Which I don't feel on the side of a 1,000-foot drop. But you know what? Having said that, the Swiss people, native Swiss people who do this thing all the time, they are literally skipping along this path. It's unbelievable. Dads with kids on their shoulders, little kids holding hands and skipping along the path. It's crazy to me. Crazy. But I guess if
they
you're...
haven't talked themselves off the ledge.
Yeah, exactly. And how many times if you're walking down a sidewalk do you honestly walk off the sidewalk? Not very many times. So it stands to reason that if the path is that wide, you should be able to navigate it without any problem.
Right, but they haven't been brought up with a fear of height. Or
Yeah.
They haven't been brought up
fear of
with
falling.
a fear of slipping or...
Right.
It's just the self-talk that they have is based on imprinting from parents. And if the parents aren't afraid of that, children won't be afraid of it either.
Now, if your parents are not having an eating challenge, I'm not going to say disorder because I don't consider my love of chocolate or potato chips a disorder so much as I do just a challenge. So if you don't have parents who have this eating challenge, then where does it come from?
Sometimes it doesn't really matter, right? What matters is rewriting the programming associated with a particular behavior. Now, in a lot of cases with hypnosis, it's powerful stuff to get to the initial sensitizing event.
Mm-hmm.
And then rewriting that event or taking them out of that event and removing the emotional attachment to that event. And then once you do that, everything else, it's like the future just falls into place. There's nothing holding them back. There's nothing blocking them.
Mm-hmm.
Just the understanding of that event changes their life, changes their habits, changes their behaviors, and changes their belief systems.
Yeah. So I think it's good to have a healthy regard for safety.
Yes.
So when you have that healthy regard for safety, I guess the hypnosis just helps you realize that in fact you are safe.
Yeah. Hypnosis is a very, very safe place to be. It's a very safe thing to practice. Mm-hmm. Nobody gets stuck in hypnosis ever. In fact, we're in trance all the time when we watch TV or when we're zoned out doing something or focused on something. It's just an attentive state of awareness. You know, we all dip in and out of trance throughout the day when we're driving a car even, going from point A to point B, and we don't remember the in-between state. We just know when we started off and when we finished. Mm-hmm. And that happens to me a lot.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah. When I was going to the barn, I'm sure the car self-drove itself because I was going there numerous times a week. You know, so...
Interesting, huh? Well, as usual, you and I could go on talking about this for hours. I find it absolutely fascinating. If someone wants to get a hold of you to look into hypnosis a little bit further, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, I do have a website. It's called mindmasterytraining.com. And there's links on there to book a free 30-minute session with me. And it's more of an introduction. What is it you're looking for? What would you like to get out of it? How you relate to me. In other words, the connection, is there a connection between two people in that 30-minute? It's rapport build. It's part of the rapport building process. I get to learn a lot more about the person calling and the reason they're looking for hypnosis, whether it be weight management, sports performance, fears, phobias, smoking cessation. So the 30-minute, we get to chat, and then you can determine after talking with me if you would like to book for a full session of, or whether it's for whatever reason, like I said, with, smoking cessation or weight management or sports or anything at all. There's also links there. I'll send you links to book full sessions. And then on there's the pricing point, but that's discussed in the 30-minute session. So completely upfront what everything costs, what you need to do, what I expect, the outcomes of the resources, the programs, etc.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you very much for joining us on Freshwaves. We've really enjoyed having you on again.
Thank you. I really enjoyed speaking with you.
You've been listening to Freshwaves. We've been speaking with Lorraine Thornhill about hypnosis. And if you'd like to hear this broadcast again, make sure you go to our YouTube channel, Freshwaves Radio, where you can hear all of our podcasts, and you can even hear past podcasts with Lorraine where we talk about all kinds of different things. So have a great day, everyone. Be kind to one another and choose kindness every time you can. That's it for Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson, and we'll catch you again next time.